You're listening to the Manifest Your Greatness podcast, and this is episode number 83. Hi, friends. I'm Curtis J. Washington. And look, the purpose of this podcast is simple. We are constantly being bombarded with messages like, we could be happy if only we had a particular thing, or we could be successful if only we made X amount of dollars, or we could be at peace if only so-and-so loved me. These messages are not only disempowering, but also they are simply not true. This is because it's not about where you are and where you want to be. It's about who you are right now and who you wish to become. Once you know what the ideal you looks like, then you will automatically start becoming aware of what steps you can take right now to move in the right direction. And the goal of this podcast is to help you look within and discover all the love, all of the beauty, and all of the unlimited potential that you already possess, and for you to set it free for you and for the world to see. Welcome to the Manifest Your Greatness podcast. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this episode of the Manifest Your Greatness podcast, where we explore practical and actionable steps that you can take to help manifest the greatness that you already possess deep inside. And today we have a special guest. Her name is Nicole Starbuck. And Nicole is a psychic empath, quantum energy healer, spiritual mentor, and life coach. She is the founder of the Auracle Academy and lead teacher at the Psychic School. Nicole is passionate about empowering people to find and pursue their life purpose by combining modalities such as Akashic records, hypnosis, light language, meditation, past life regression, Reiki, and star codes. She connects people to their higher selves and heals their fears and anxieties. When those aspects of ourselves are healed, we can attract abundance and manifest what we truly desire at light speed. Nicole, welcome to the Manifest Your Greatness podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and thank you for that beautiful introduction.
Yeah, I'm just so happy that you're here. I think we have so many wonderful topics to cover. I think all of the people who are listening or watching this episode have a significant interest in how to become better, how to ignite their own spark inside, how to apply their skills in a way that everyone benefits from, and really kind of discovering who they are and what their purpose is, and how to let that out so that everyone can benefit from it, including themselves. And my goodness, I mean, what you're doing, I think, is really amazing, and it's something that we have never had an opportunity to introduce to our audience here at Manifest Your Greatness at the podcast here. So, before we get into all the great things that you are doing, and how you're applying your abilities and everything to help people become the best that they can be, to help manifest what they truly desire. I'm really curious, and I think everyone else is too. How did you first learn that you had psychic abilities?
Oh, this is a fun story. Okay, so it goes back years and years and years ago. By this point, almost 25 years. I first discovered my psychic gifts and abilities when I was 9 years old. I was coming out of school to get picked up, and out of nowhere, I just had this random thought, a bird is going to poop on me right now. And sure enough, it did. Right then and there, it landed right here on my arm. And I remember looking down thinking, oh my gosh, this is so gross. And oh my gosh, I can't believe I just predicted this. So I go to the bathroom to wash it off. I get picked up from school, and I just kind of kept it to myself. It was like my little secret, right? But I did not have an environment where I could really develop that or talk to anyone about that. Because when I was growing up, I grew up in a very conservative religious household. I was told that things like psychic intuition was weird. If you use tarot cards or pendulum, that was evil. You were going to go to hell. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm doing something bad. This is bad. So I'm going to keep it to myself. So I ended up having a lot of anxiety because I would have these premonitions, these dreams and predictions, and they would come true. I felt like I couldn't control what was happening to me or the outcomes that I was seeing. And because I was not living in alignment with my authentic truth and developing my skills and abilities, I ended up also having a lot of depression alongside the anxiety. This all led to chronic illness that had a lot of disease or dis-ease in my body. And this all came to a head in my early 20s. I thought I was doing everything right, go to school, get a good job, go to school, get good grades, get a good job with benefits, everything will be fine, right?
The
And it
formula,
was
right?
the formula for success. It was not fine. It was not fine. That was my lowest point. I lost so much weight. I was so sick. I was falling apart. I ended up in the ER with a panic attack. And the doctors were really pushing for psychiatric medication and psychiatric care. And I just thought, there has to be another way. I just felt it in my bones that there has to be another way. So I started my personal growth and development journey, which served me for many years, got my mind right, got my body right. I was doing much better. But along the line, I thought, I'm still missing something. I'm missing the soul. I'm missing the spiritual component. So I had a second spiritual awakening where I was just really drawn to anything with the word soul in it. I created a whole business called Soul Loving around soul. This was an early rendition of the business I have now. And I went to a Facebook group that was called Visionary Soul. They were hosting a retreat called Soul on Fire. And I just kept having this feeling, this is the next step. This is the next step. This is the next step. So I go to this retreat in Sedona. I don't know if you've been or anyone has been.
Yeah.
Beautiful place. Highly recommended to anyone, everyone. It's just magical there. And I go to this retreat and one of the facilitators turns to me and she says, "You're psychic." And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like, you are not supposed to know that. That is my deep, dark secret. Like, I don't tell anybody this. How did you know? And she helped me with some light language and some other things, open up and reactivating my gifts and abilities because it was under lock and key. I had shut that down. It was under wraps for many, many years. By this point, 20 years. And she helped me unlock and unleash that. And I went all in. I got it. I read as many books as I could about the subject, took as many courses and programs, certifications. I started doing professional readings on Etsy. At one point, actually impacted over 1,000 people, replaced my day job income doing professional readings. And what I noticed was a lot of people that were coming to me were also highly sensitive, highly empathic, just hadn't realized it yet. They were getting all that anxiety like I had gotten, and they were looking for confirmation. The people that were coming to me for healing sessions, also highly empathic, just hadn't learned how to channel out that energy that they were receiving, everyone else's energy, out of their bodies, because then they were ending up sick and coming for healing sessions. And I thought, there must be a common thread here. I want to address the root causes, not just the symptoms, right? We don't want to just put a band-aid fix and send you off with a one-off reading. Like, we actually want to empower you to embrace your spiritual skills and abilities, which was the inspiration and catalyst for Oracle Academy, which houses the psychic school for developing your psychic intuition.
Wow. Well, so during this process, it sounds like the trip to Sedona and all you were receiving what seems like you had an intuition that there was something that you needed to discover that was happening inside of you, but you still had that feeling that I don't want to let out too much. I want to kind of figure this out and I want to know. Just because you had that intuition and you had that feeling inside that there was something you needed to learn for yourself. But when did that kind of tipping point happen where you said you went all in? I was just curious, was there a specific event or anything that happened that all of a sudden made you comfortable with kind of coming out and saying, I can help you. There are things that I can do to assist you. I have these abilities and I want to be of service. Did something kind of happen to flip that switch, or how did that come about?
That's a beautiful question. So prior to the second spiritual awakening, which was the trip to Sedona, where I got reactivated in my psychic gifts and abilities, I was in a really dark place. I was doing really good for a while, and then I had like a relapse, and I was in a dark place, and I was in so much physical and emotional pain because they're linked, right? So I'm emotionally in pain, that leads to physical pain, which leads to more emotional pain. I didn't even want to get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
It took everything I could because it felt like I had been hit by a truck. Everything hurt. And I didn't want to live anymore, to be completely honest. I just wanted the pain to stop. And I remembered very distinctly, like it was all I could do to get out of bed and get in the shower. And one day I'm in the shower and I'm like, God, I just want this to end. I just want this to end. And this voice came in and spoke to me and it said, don't give up. You're destined for greatness. There's purpose in the pain. Keep going. And I got this vision, like it's bringing me to tears not thinking of it, but I got this vision of me taking everything I had experienced, all this pain and this struggle and this suffering and all of this anxiety and depression and chronic illness, and taking it and transmuting it and using it to transform lives. I just didn't know how. And I didn't realize how until I took that leap of faith, what you said, following your intuition, before I realized it was intuition.
Yeah.
And then I realized this is it. This is it. Anxiety is actually your intuition coming through. It's just that we have so many other influences and interferences that we second guess, and it
Yeah.
leads to overthinking and overwhelm. And so
Yeah.
if I can help people clear the clutter and get back in tune with their internal system, their inner guidance and inner wisdom, everything else falls into place. The more in alignment we are with our soul's mission and life purpose, the less anxiety we're going to feel, the less depression we're going to feel, the less chronic illness we're going to have, the less burnout we're going to experience, and the more we're able to step up, show up, speak our authentic truth, and be a guiding light for other people.
Yeah. Well, that's, it's really interesting. Some of the things that you said really kind of made me think about some of my own experiences as well, and especially when you're talking about anxiety. And one of the things that, and I told my kids this too, and I don't know, maybe I'm misleading them. You probably would know better than me, but the thing that comes up for me sometimes is that when I feel anxiety and I can't put a finger on where it's coming from. Like there are days that sometimes I just kind of feel like something is off. Something is kind of triggering my emotional responses, and I can't put a finger on it. I always tell myself it's like I'm trying to listen to a station on the radio, but it's not in tune. I know there's something there, so I need to kind of slow myself down and really start to try to tune in better, or else it's going to just keep sounding like static and it's going to drive me crazy for the rest of the day. So I tell my kids that too, but yeah, that just really resonated me when you mentioned anxiety, because that's something that I've been really trying to work towards dealing with. I'm sure it's something that so many other people, and maybe they don't even define it in their own mind as anxiety. They think it's something else, which is another challenge, I guess, right?
Yeah, and so I love how you described it like radio static, or just like a signal that's coming into your field and impacting your energy and your emotions, because that's really how when we get into the energetics of it, like if I were to ask you to close your eyes and think about a situation that's bringing you stress or anxiety, if you could give it like a color or a texture, what does it look like? What does it feel like? Where is it coming into your body? So you described it as a sort of static. And so I tend to have a lot of clairvoyance, which is clear seeing. When you say static, and I can feel it in your field, it looks like grainy sand, like a sand cloud around you, right? And so when we get into the energetics of that and showing people how to clear and lift this energy for themselves, I have them tune into their body. We always want to go back in, go within to the body, right? We have tools like pendulum and tarot cards, those are great, but also like trust your inner wisdom, right? So get back into your body. And so if we were to use you as the example and inviting you to tune into this kind of grainy sand static around you, you have the power, you have awareness, you know that it's there. And then what would it look like for you to actually like lift the cloud and push the cloud and push the sand away from you, or take a lawn leaf blower and like blow the sand away, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
awareness is the first step. You're halfway there. Awareness is the first step. Aligned action is the second step. So what are you going to do about it?
yeah.
Right? It's okay to feel anxiety. It's okay to have anxious thoughts. It's just, are we letting that anxiety, those anxious thoughts control us?
Mhm.
Or are we in control of our thoughts?
Right, right. Yeah, so true, so true. As a matter of fact, you mentioned I was just doing looking at some of the information that you had on your website and things like that, and I you had these three truths, and I thought that they were so insightful, and I just wanted to share those if that's okay. The three
Yes,
truths.
please do.
So you had truth number one, everyone is psychic. You already know the answers. We can help you remember. Number two is you were born with spiritual gifts which can be developed. And number three is you create your reality and are in control of your thoughts, actions, and destiny. And I thought these were beautiful. And I was just so curious. How did you identify, or how did you discover that these truths were were truths? How did you discover them?
Yeah, I had some help. So I'll be the first to tell you, like, I am not the greatest at delegating, but I had some help. So at the end of last year, the second half of last year, I was pregnant with my son. I was about to give birth at the in December. And I had already been feeling for a while something's shifting in my business. It's not just because I'm pregnant. It's not just because I'm thinking about quitting my day job. Because remember, by then I had replaced my day job income with my Etsy store readings. But I said, something big is coming. It's not just the baby, but something big is coming. And I get out of delivery and I get out of maternity leave, and I just feel like I can't go back to how I was doing things before. Even though it was profitable, it was lucrative, I was making great money doing readings and healing sessions, something big is coming because it's not just about the one-off readings,
Right.
something more. And I couldn't put it into words. I couldn't quite put it into words. I just felt it. And I said, universe, show me the person that's supposed to help me put it into words. And I kid you not, later that day or the next day, it was within 24 hours, I saw a post from a friend and colleague of mine that I hadn't talked to in years. But she's a human design copywriter, and she was offering a free copy audit. And I thought it wouldn't hurt to try, right? So I send in my info. She records a little video of my old website and goes through some things. And it was like she could read my mind. It was like she could take what I was thinking and feeling and trying to express in the world, but she put it into tangible form. And so I made a pretty sizable investment in working with her to put into words what I was feeling. And that really helped me to solidify and identify my core pillars, what I believe in. And if anyone has been in my world for a while or has been listening to the different podcast interviews that I do, we tend to talk about the same three things. You
Yeah.
are psychic, you have power, and you have control. Those are the three things.
Wow. Oh, well, yeah, that's interesting. And you know, you also mentioned that everyone has their own unique psychic blueprint, I believe it was.
Yes.
So what does that mean? What is, yeah, can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we start with your story, what sort of reservations or resistance you have around the word psychic, because I use that word intentionally because I know it can rub people the wrong way, and my purpose in that is to bring that awareness to, well, why does that bother you, right? And I have people that say, oh, I wish I was psychic. Actually, you are. Let me help you develop that.
Yeah.
But the psychic blueprint really comes about with how do you best hear from God, source, spirit, universe, the divine, whatever you call that higher power. How are you tuning in? Because I can liken psychic abilities to being a radio or a TV where you can like tune into a station. But think about how many different types of TVs we have and different types of radios. Everyone's a little bit different, right? We have different buttons and levers and knobs and all these things.
Yeah.
And so we look at two main things. We look at your energetic blueprint. How are you receiving information in your body? And then how is that coming about? How are the messages coming about? We look at the clairs. So earlier I mentioned clairvoyance, which is clear seeing, and I'll explain the other ones in just a moment. I usually start with our energetic blueprint. And I touched on this just a moment ago when I was talking about the sand, grainy sand around you, the cloud, the dust storm around you.
Yeah.
So the energetic blueprint is, or the energetic signature, where do you feel truth in your body?
Okay.
Because one of the biggest questions I get is, how do you know if it's anxiety or intuition? Anxiety or intuition, right? So I'll ask a simple question. Very simple, straightforward, closing our eyes, tuning into our body, breathing out any anxiety, breathing in any peace, right? If I were to ask you the question or say, the sky is blue, what is the immediate visceral response that comes through? For me, I feel truth in my gut. And the solar plexus, which is right here in the stomach area, it's kind of a clenching here in the gut, like, yes, the sky is blue. But then if I were to say the sky is green, immediately my head wants to shake side to side. No, 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 the sky is not green.
Yeah.
And that's my example, but everyone's a little bit different, right? So some people will actually like go back and forth for no, or yes, front and back for yes, or they may feel their heart swelling for yes.
Mm-hmm.
Or some other sensation for no. There's no right or wrong. There's only what's true for you. But I show this as an example. One, you can feel truth in your body. And two, everyone feels that a little bit differently. And then we repeat the exercise to find a pattern and make sure this is your yes and this is your no. So if I were to say the grass is green, immediately my gut kind of clenches and says, yes, 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 the grass is green. And then if I were to say the grass is purple, immediately I want to shake my head. No, 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 the grass is not purple. What are you talking about, right? And so that's how we feel truth in our body. Now, to differentiate between intuition and anxiety, because we hear voices, right? So I tell people we have our parents, we have our spouses and partners, we have our kids, we have our friends, we have our news, TV and movies, we have social media, we have the school system and religious constructs and structures and politics and all these other voices coming in. So one of the big steps is we want to take all of those external influences and unplug them as much as we can so that you can be a clear channel for receiving messages. So if we have taken out those other sources and we are still getting interference of, oh my gosh, is this anxiety of or intuition, tune back into that energetic signature. Is this information coming from within? Do you feel that in your gut for your yes? That's my example. Or like, is it coming from outside of your head? Right. Because for me, anxiety feels like little shards of glass coming in like daggers into my head. And it's a kind of like buzzing sensation like that. And you described it as static. And I saw it as kind of a dust storm around you. Yeah. Right? So then you can tune in, bring your awarenesses. Well, am I feeling this sensation as truth in my body, or am I feeling it as something outside of myself trying to come in and interfere?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we get into part of that psychic blueprint is, what are your primary clairs? So most people are familiar with clairvoyance, which is clear seeing. That's being able to visualize in your mind's eye or third eye here what something is happening, the past, something that's going to happen. But also we have clear cognizance, which is clear knowing. So that's just knowing information about people, places, and things without any other input or information, just having a sense of this happened then, this person's about to do that, this person has this history, these are the events that led up to this situation without anyone telling you anything else. But then we also have what's very, very common, and most people don't realize this. I touched on this earlier with the highly empathic people that were coming for healing sessions, is clairsentience, which is clear feeling. So if you have ever walked into a room and just gotten like a bad vibe about that space or a bad vibe about somebody, or you go like into a hospital or someone who's sick and you immediately know what's wrong with them because you feel it in your body, an ache in your tummy, a pain in your back, you're picking up on their. So this is clairsentience, but most people don't realize that. They don't know how to filter it, and then they end up picking up that illness because they're absorbing it like a sponge. It's the equivalent of if you walk into a bar and it's smoky, you walk out of the bar, you're still smoky. Yeah. And so those are the three most common clairs, but we also have the other ones related to the senses. So we have clear olfactance, which is clear smelling. So you may actually smell smells that aren't there. I tend to smell things that are pretty raunchy and nasty, but I met someone the other day that smells like perfume and roses. I'm like, universe, give me some of that, please. Clear gustance, which is clear tasting. Clear audience, which is clear hearing. That's another one. Wow. Is hearing things. But the hearing things is like well, how do I know if that's me or not, like God, source, universe, right? Again, going back into that energetic signature. So when I get a message, a divine download from source, spirit, whatever you want to call that, higher power, it tends to pop up in my head like a text message.
Mm,
Like, ding, this is happening. Ding, this is a message for that person. Ding, it just kind of pops up. Or I will see it like a photo, as if someone's texting me a photo, pops up right here, or texting me a video, I see it right here in
wow.
my third eye. But that could be different for you. So some people will actually hear like a voice
Yeah.
outside of them. And then if it's not your voice, then you know that,
Yeah.
yeah. And the other thing too is that people get voices that don't have their best interests in heart. And again, the question is, how do you know if that's anxiety or intuition? How do you know if this is God, source, universe, or something else?
Mm,
And the answer to that is God, source, universe, whatever you call that higher power, will never tell you anything that is not for your greatest good and highest potential.
mhm,
So
mhm.
if there is any sort of doubt, fear, anxiety message coming through, that is either your internal shadow side, ego self wanting to keep you small, stuck, or one of those other influences is popping back in that I talked about, your parents, how you grew up, your spouse and what they think, your friends and what they think, the news and media, social media, religious constructs. It's interference.
Yeah. Interesting. And one of the things that I find so fascinating about everything you're saying is that it's it's I mean, it makes total sense. I mean, if you really kind of think about it from an objective standpoint and just listen to it, um, and you can imagine all of these things, and a lot of people probably are listening or watching this and going, "Yeah, I've felt that. Yeah, I've had that feel. Yes, I." But so many people try to define something, with with the primitive science that's available to us today, or they want some sort of other type of proof. And it's one of those things, and like you were saying before, having an understanding of the feeling, or how the message is being received, like knowing if it's whether or not if it's anxiety or if it's intuition, and I have, I'll share something else. I'm just really curious to get your thoughts on this. And I assume that there are other people out there who had this feeling before. But I'll let you know how I've been. A couple of things that I've noticed about experiences that I've had. That and had a discussion with someone else about this as well. And he said, just don't ignore it. Just don't ignore it. Don't try to judge it. Don't try to explain it. Just be there. And I was like, yeah, okay, that makes total sense. But one of the things that I've noticed is that every on this doesn't happen all the time, but there are times that I feel a little overwhelmed, or times where I feel like I have a lot of questions, and especially about whether or not I'm doing the right thing, or whether or not I could have handled something better, or whether or not uh, what I have planned coming up the next day is going to go well. So it's kind of a mix of emotions kind of going on, and usually it happens in the evening, because that's when I'm trying to relax. And then it's like this last minute flurry of all these thoughts, wait a minute, did you do this? Did you think about this? Did you plan for that? It's like, yeah, I've done everything I can. I'd like to go to sleep now. But I'll get, when I have these feelings or these thoughts, um, oftentimes I'll hear a ringing in my ears. And the ringing it's almost like, it's a feeling that someone is trying to calm me, like they're just trying to say, hey, don't you're worrying too much, that you've done everything you can, you got to trust yourself. I'm not hearing any words, of course, at this point, but it's just kind of like, it's been consistent enough that it seems to come at certain times, and I've sensed a pattern. I don't ask questions, I just kind of go, okay, okay, got it. Okay, I got it. Now I can rest. What do you make
Uh,
of that?
yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up. The ringing in the ears is your spirit guides getting your attention. And I remember for me, earlier on in my journey, before I had my second spiritual awakening, after the first one, but before the second one, I had two things. It was ringing in the ears that, actually three things: ringing in the ears, static interference. So the radio wouldn't even be on, but it would still have static. And also, I would see like flashes of light or squiggles of color that weren't actually there. It was so bad. I actually went into the eye doctor several times, and he's like, "Your eyes are perfectly healthy. There's nothing wrong with you."
Yeah.
And so, the ringing in the ears, especially in times of stress or right before a pivotal moment where something's going to happen, it's really a wake up call. It's like someone, like spirits calling you, like, hey, slow down, listen in, what's going on? And so it's just taking that moment to bring our awareness to, well, is it the left or the right? Is it both? Because that could mean different things. And when you tune in, is there a message that's coming through? So
Mm,
for you, it was kind of like, okay, I can relax now, everything's going to be okay. But is there a message that's coming through?
mm,
And then actually following up on that message. And
yeah.
we can override it too. Like, here I am, the spiritual mentor, life coach, teaching on this, but I overrode it yesterday and it created a whole bunch of problems for today. Like what I was talking about before we were started recording is Mercury retrograde coming up, and I feel like all the technology feels. But if I had listened to my intuition and not tried to do the purchase yesterday, because Spirit was saying, wait another day, wait another day. But did I wait? No, I did not. And I messed up all kinds of stuff. So it happens, right? We don't always listen.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's a process, it sounds like, as well, like anything in life, where you just kind of have to keep working at it. I hear one of the things that I've been really just doing a lot of deep diving on with myself, and it's been brought up by some of the guests that I've had too, how um, we can become a bit distracted by putting a place or a name on a goal as something that once we get, we're going to be happy. And it's much more healthy to kind of think about everything that we're going through as a process. And one of the things that I lived in Japan for a long time,
Mm.
and in if you in Japan, the martial arts at the end of most of the martial arts is in Japanese, it's do, and that means the way. And so, if you are someone who practices Aikido, this is the way of Aikido, or Judo is the way of being a what they call a judoka, someone who practices judo. And I have been really trying to focus on thinking of what we're going through as the way and not as a goal or destination. Like, this is who I am. I am on this journey. Yes, I'll fall off here and there, but this is my way. And I'm working on trying to be the best at continuing on my way as I can. And like what you were saying about, it's still even yourself, when you have these skills and you've developed them so far, there are still going to be times where that something is going to distract you, or sometimes we get a sense like we have to force something to happen, especially when we're already panicked, So we're trying to like cram something in and make something happen right now, and it's not. It maybe we're definitely no better off trying to do that if we were kind of more tuning into ourselves. And I thought that was really interesting, and maybe just a great reminder for everyone that you can have these skills and all of these great things that are assisting you, but we still have the ability to have a bad day, and it's okay if we're thinking of the process and not, oh, I'm not good at this. Of course you're good at it. This is who you are. This is the path that you're on. So we should embrace that and not beat ourselves up too much, is something I've been really trying to focus on of late. But
Yeah, I mean, you said it. We're spiritual beings having a human experience, and humans make mistakes, and that's okay. Like, just because you're spiritual doesn't mean you don't get angry or sad or frustrated or overwhelmed. It just means you're human.
Right, right. So one of the questions that I had was, I know that you help people, and you're, of course, you're a life coach, and you're bringing tools, you're bringing modalities and things like that that are not typically brought up in like, most common coaching sessions. So I definitely wanted to kind of go through some of these modalities that you use. I mean, meditation people are familiar with at a high level, I would think, and maybe hypnosis. But like for example, the Akashic records. I'm a little familiar with Edgar Casey and his interpretation of those. But how can you explain maybe what it is and how you would use that to support one of your clients?
Yeah, I love that question. So the framework I take everyone through is, where are you now? Where would you like to be? What's the slow moving energy or resistance as to why you don't already have that now? And then let's find the root cause. Let's not just treat the symptoms and do the mindset stuff, but let's actually go back and trace it back. What's your earliest memory? Most common themes are wanting to create more love, more money, or better health. So for example, with love, feeling unworthy, what's your earliest memory of feeling rejected, of feeling unloved, of feeling unworthy? Most things go back into childhood, but also we start to identify patterns that maybe have even deeper roots. So we may have something in a past life that's coming back into this life. And we can use the Akashic records to take a look at those patterns and those soul contracts. So if you believe in reincarnation, in between lives, we kind of look back at the previous life and say, okay, this went well, this not so much. Let's go back and try again. We'll write a soul contract. We'll fulfill it in this life, so we don't have to repeat this lesson anymore, right? But we don't always get the hint, and then we keep repeating the same thing over and over and over again. So the
Right.
Akashic records are the history of everything that ever was, is, and will be. And how it presents itself to me is this sort of cosmic library in the sky. I go up this beautiful golden staircase. I get to the top. It's this cloud city. If you've ever seen the movie Beauty and the Beast, where she's presented with that giant library with books floor to ceiling, just all the shelves and all the books, it looks like that in my mind's eye. And when I go in, I never go in with an agenda. I just have a very open mind and willing heart. And I go in and I open my hands, and everyone has a book of life here in this Akashic Records library. There's a book of Curtis, there's a book of Nicole, there's a book of your wife, a book of my husband, all the things, right? So we go in and I just open my hands and I invite whoever's book to come in. Usually I go in and I read for myself, but if it's for a client, it comes into my hands. And so for whatever reason, your book is coming into my hands. Let's see if there's a message coming through for you. And so it shows me like past lives, and it'll start to show me common themes and threads depending on either the question or intention that we're setting. In this case, I didn't have a specific question. It's just universe, whatever you want to show me today. Let's see that. And I get this, and I don't know why, maybe you know why, this image of Gandalf riding a horse. And there's something with the Lord of the Rings and wizards and magic that in this current life, you are a healer. You heal through your words, and it's the universe is wanting you to do something with your hands, like making things, creating things. Like I see carpentry, I see something where you're doing, I do a lot of Reiki and light language, which is the way that I heal with my hands, but it's wanting you to use not just your words and your voice and your mind, but also your hands in creating magic, in creating manifestations. And this is how you're going to alchemize and shift and transform people's lives.
Very interesting, and it's actually uh, yeah, it's very insightful for sure because I definitely think that just for everyone out there, one of the reasons that I left corporate America and that I made all of these changes and that I started the podcast and all of the things that I've been working on now is actually because I have been feeling that um, you know regardless of how social media may see me or regardless of how my friends or whoever they think, oh, what is he doesn't have the right to be on, talk about these things and have a podcast or whatever. I've kind of dismissed all that, and I think I've really come and found peace in knowing that what I really want to do is to have the opportunity to learn more about topics that can help more. And the podcast to me, I thought was the perfect platform to be able to have these insightful discussions with people who are doing things in ways that I don't really comprehend, but would benefit probably not only me, but everyone else listening in some way. And I always think about, like you were saying about frequencies, I think about how some people hear, tune into different frequencies. Some people hear things that other people don't. Some people, see colors slightly different than others. Some people, the words that they hear are interpreted differently. And some people can hear the exact same message and get two completely different meanings from it, or feelings from it, or messages from it. And I can't take responsibility for that. But I think what's important for me to always keep in mind is that you never know what is going to make a difference. So to continue to get out there and to continue to engage with people who are doing so many wonderful things, and someone's going to hear what they need to hear to, whether that's get through the next day or become better than they were yesterday, tomorrow, or make that decision that they've been putting off, thinking that they couldn't do it for whatever reason it was, or be able to discover what their real purpose is when they've been, going down a path that they thought was what they were supposed to do because everyone else was telling them, but inside they were being pulled a different direction. And they finally said, hey, I'm going to go and follow what I've been feeling all this time. Whatever it is and whoever it is, I just always try to keep that in mind, that the potential is there, and I'm here to serve, and I'm just very grateful to have the opportunity to speak with people who have so much wonderful insight to share. So, so yeah,
That's beautiful. And I feel like this loops back to what you were sharing earlier. It's not like you went into this with this hard and fast goal of, I'm going to make a podcast and it's going to have this many episodes and this many guest speakers, and we're going to hit these number of listeners and we're going to make this much money doing it. Like, that wasn't it. But what I wanted to share, and somehow we started talking about something else, but for me, it's not so much about setting a goal, but setting an intention. So the intention was what you just said: just
yeah,
step up, show up, be of service.
yeah,
Whatever else happens, it's this or something better. You may want to make money, but you're also open to whatever else comes through. Really beautiful connections may come through, paying clients may come through, impacting thousands of lives, of course, right? And
yeah,
I'm reminded of how you and I met was at the beginning of this year. I was feeling called to create community, connection and community. Those were the two words that came through as I was visioning for this year. And I said, I do one-on-one. They're like, we know it's time to do more. So I was doing one-on-one. I started doing group. That was how I was building community, was group coaching. And I started the psychic school. And then they said, okay, it's time to start a Facebook group. I said, I don't like Facebook. They said, do it anyway. So I did it anyway. We have almost 800 members. It's a beautiful space. I love it. And then it said, okay, it's time to do more podcast interviews. I said, I haven't done podcast interviews in months. They're like, we know, it's time. So I joined a Facebook group. And what's interesting about the Facebook group where you and I connected and we met, I didn't join it at first. I saw a sign. I said, the universe, send me a sign. What's my next group to join to get connections? It shows me this group. And I said, send me a sign of your sign. If you show it to me again, I'll join it. Shows it to me again. Okay, I get it. I get the hint. Join the group. There you are. And that's how we met. Not
wow.
because I set a goal, but because I set an intention.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I can't exactly remember. I think I had spoken to someone about how to reach more people. And it's funny that you mentioned community, because that's something that's been really something that I've been really thinking about so much lately. And I think it's interesting because I'm an athlete as well. I race with the outrigger canoes out here, the Polynesian style canoe racing, and I go to the gym, and I do a lot of my other work on the phone or on the computer. And I have been feeling recently, So I see my family a lot, and of course, we're very close. But some of the things that I'm interested in are not the things that they're interested in. Like my family, I mean, they know I have a podcast, but they probably haven't heard hardly any. They maybe heard 5 or 6 of my episodes, which is fine because I realize everybody has their own interests. But then I started really feeling that, this podcast is giving me an opportunity to connect with so many people I can have these conversations with. And this gives me energy and it fills me up and it makes me, it reminds me that what I'm doing is something that, that is potentially valuable for someone. And it keeps me moving forward. It keeps me hungry to keep learning. And it just has really been a wonderful way to meet so many wonderful people too. So that's interesting that you mentioned community because that's something that's been on my mind as well. Just thinking about my day to day. So this is my opportunity to connect. So I'm just very grateful for it.
Ooh, I love it. Yay.
So yeah, so you were talking about the Akashic records, and you mentioned the book of life and lives, plural, right? And this kind of goes into past life regression. I was curious if we could talk a little bit about this. And this is a topic that I am extremely interested in personally because two of my favorite books are by Dr. Michael Newton. He had a book called Journey of Souls and another one called Destiny of Souls. And it was these were the kind of books that you start reading and it's almost like you just have this feeling that uh, you're home. It's like you just this is stuff that really resonates. So just I can't believe how fast I went through these books, and how I never question. I mean, there were things that I had questions, but so much of it was like, yeah, yeah, of course, yeah, of course, of course. And then after I finished, I was like, no one is going to understand what I just read, and it's going to be so difficult for me to explain this to anybody. But past life regression is definitely something that I have a lot of interest in, and I'm sure a lot of people here that are listening or watching would love to hear a little bit more about, especially from your perspective, and how you're able to leverage this knowledge to really help people become better versions of themselves.
Yeah. Have you done one, a past life regression? Do you have any sort of sense or
I
inkling of
have.
some of your past lives?
I did one when I used to live in Utah about 5 years ago. And it was very interesting because now thinking back on it, it's kind of ironic, but the person mentioned they saw sandals, like old, straw sandals, and they saw a wooden canoe. And I thought, well, that's very interesting. Never thought about it, never knew anything about canoes. And then, so she also had done some other, just, she kind of let me know as well that there were going to be some challenges. There's going to be a lot of transition in my life, which, yeah, she kind of nailed that too. But what it took me a long time to recall this, but my oldest daughter had started, I had no idea even what it was, outrigger canoe racing for high school. And I was like, "Oh, what is that?" And she said, "There's a club. I have a friend. There's a club down here in our own town, close by." And I went, and I was like, "Oh, this is kind of cool." And they're fiberglass canoes. So I was like, "Oh, yeah, okay, that's kind of cool." And I was just kind of learning how to do that. And then we get to race season, and I was like being told about how the season works, and the coach was saying, "Yeah, we have to get the canoes ready." And I was like, "Oh, what are we going to do with these canoes?" And he's like, "No, no, no, no. You can't race the fiberglass canoes in our regatta racing, which is like a short distance racing. You have to use the koa canoes." And I was like, "What's that?" And he goes over and he pulls off a cover, and there's these koa wood canoes that we actually race in. And it took me a few days to kind of put that all together. And I was just like, well, that is just the strangest thing because that is where I'm happiest now. It's like whenever I go down to the water and I'm in the canoe, I feel like this is where I belong. And it took me a long time to kind of put those pieces together. I was like, someone told me that I had some sort of connection in a past life. And maybe that's one of the reasons that I just feel so comfortable around these canoes and in the water. And I was always afraid of the ocean too, which is kind of the crazy thing. But when I'm around these canoes, everything just feels right. So I thought that was really interesting to reflect on for sure. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Ooh, I love it. Beautiful synchronicity. So when I do a past life regression, it's typically we do some sort of guided meditation or hypnosis to unplug the conscious mind and get into the subconscious mind and really that creative visualization space. And we kind of time travel. We go backwards, and there's really two ways to do it. You can either go into it looking for a specific theme, for example, love, money, health, and three most common topics we talked about, or we can go through just chronologically going backwards, however far. Most people, if they have a sense that they're an old soul, that they are maybe not from here, they feel out of place, something feels a little off for them, have some sort of belief or at least open-mindedness towards reincarnation. So this belief is we live, we die, we come back, we live, we die, we come back over and over and over again. So you may come back a handful of times, dozens of times. I was told the other day that I've been here over 700 years, 28 times. This is my 28th life. So that's interesting for me. So when we do a past life regression, I've done some for myself, both professionally and then me practicing on myself. I have seen different lives where I was like in Salem as a witch. I've seen where I was a healer in Mexico. I've seen where I'm a princess somewhere in the Middle East. And I've seen where I have been in positions of power and sometimes abused it, which is kind of sad. But I've also seen where I am like a soldier and have been in battles. And so you can have male and female past lives. It doesn't differentiate, but your soul typically comes back for a particular reason. So in my case, I have always come back as some sort of psychic healer or witch, and I'm here to wake up the world, which is why this is so like near and dear to my heart, and I'm so passionate about it, is I have seen the light and I want to help guide others to the light, to their authentic truth.
Oh, that's beautiful. I really think that it's definitely um, what I love. One of the things I love doing is just exploring how many different potential ways we have to support ourselves in becoming better, and how it's a lot of these ways are overlooked or they're overpowered by the messages we get from the media saying take this pill and you'll feel better, or if you buy this you'll feel better, so we're always kind of fighting with this interference and trying to get more in touch with who we are. But then on the flip side, the beauty of the internet and all these things is the connections we can make if we know what we're looking for and we're listening and reaching out with intent and things like that. So but yeah, so okay, so we talked a little bit about past life regression and also about the Akashic records. And Reiki also you had mentioned, and I was just curious if maybe you could share how you use that to support that modality to support your clients.
Yeah, I'll talk about Reiki and I'll talk about light language because they're similar yet different. So,
Okay.
Reiki is an ancient Japanese practice of using particular signs and symbols, either drawn or signed out with the hands, to shift particular energies of the bodies. So, usually there's five symbols that we work with, like the core symbols. There are some other ones, but then we use these to go into someone's energetic field. If you're not familiar with the chakra system, which is the Sanskrit word for wheel, chakra, we have seven from the top of our head to the base of our spine. There are more going up, but most people focus on the core seven. A Reiki practitioner, such as myself, would actually go into our energetic field. And usually with Reiki, we don't touch the body, but we're hovering right above it. And you can start to feel like right now I'm working on a hologram of you right in front of me. And so I can actually feel like my hands start tingling when I start doing this. And so when we do a Reiki session, like a full Reiki session, we'll go through each of the chakras from top to bottom, from the crown at the top all the way to the root at the bottom, and energetically shift and clear the energy using the Reiki symbols. Now, my personal practice actually evolved. I realized I wasn't just doing the Reiki symbols, I was doing something else, and I didn't understand what I was doing. And the mentor that is actually the one that opened up and reactivated my psychic gifts and abilities at the retreat showed me that I was doing light language. So it wasn't just the particular Reiki symbols that have come through in that particular modality, but other symbols that I couldn't name or explain were coming through. So the thing with light language is that it's thought to be angelic language channeled from the heavens. It comes through the body and actually gets worked through the hands. So as I was like shifting your sand cloud, you saw me doing like the sort of wiggly motion with my hands. That's light language. It can also come through spoken or sung, or it can come through drawn. So I remember growing up, and I didn't remember this till years later when I woke up to this, but I used to scribble in the margins of my homework little symbols, and I would get in trouble for drawing in my margins. My teachers would say, Nicole, your homework's so messy. I said, yeah, but it's a 100% A+ paper. Why does it matter? So I still do it to this day. I doodle and draw little symbols. It's light language, and nobody really knows what it means, right? If you've ever heard of speaking in tongues, that's light language. Nobody really knows what it means. It doesn't make logical sense. And the thing I wanted to say earlier is, it doesn't have to make logical sense to be true.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to make sense to be true. And it does whatever it needs to do in that person's field to shift and clear their energy. Just like you said, whatever comes through on these podcast episodes is what comes through. And that's exactly what somebody needed to hear to get to that next level.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so, and then, okay, so you've got, so those are, I'm just kind of curious in terms of Reiki and this and light language. You mentioned that there was overlap, and I think I understand a little bit about they have to do with energy and feeling, understanding where the energy is and the state of the energy. How how is the practice different in terms of light language versus Reiki? And like, how do you apply those?
Yeah, great question. Reiki will use the particular set of symbols that are unique to Reiki. This set of, Reiki, one of them is the zigzag, right? That will mean this, it will do this in the body, very specific, right? Light language is a little more fluid, that we intuitively do whatever needs to be done in the field, and it goes out. Like, if, again, I'm not going to explain why, but your field is calling for this magnetic energy for the next people, places, and things to come into your life in the next week, in the next month, in the next year, to really catapult your financial success, which is very closely linked to your spiritual mission and vision, which is impacting people's lives and showing them the tools and modalities for them to become the best version of themselves, right? So if we were to go into your field, like not just doing Reiki on your body, but actually going into your auric field and the quantum field, we start doing this light language, and we start like bending time and taking that time and collapsing it. So it's like as if you were taking in it looks like a fishing line or like a rope, or pulling it in, pulling it in, pulling it in, and pulling it in, pulling it in. And again, like, I don't know what this means, but I'm pulling it in, pulling it in, pulling it in, and we're magnetizing that to you. So it's not quite as like structured as the traditional Reiki would be.
Okay, so more abstract. There's more. You're not restricted to specific symbols or specific practice per se. It's a little bit, like you said, more fluid, and you have a lot more flexibility in terms of how you can kind of work with the light. It sounds like, is that accurate?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I'll give you an example. I have two kids. I have a daughter almost 3 and a son almost 1. I'm so sad. I just realized he's going to turn 1 next month.
Wow.
And I, from early on in her infancy, had been doing Reiki on her chakra system. And as she got older, I started realizing this girl is very sensitive, very empathic, takes right after her mama, right? Like lots of energy moving there. And she had reached a point, so she was about 2 years old, where she would be asking for me, and I'm standing right in front of her, like,
Oh,
Mama, Mama, I'm like, stop right here. What do you need? And if I would step away, like, okay, good night, she started screaming, Mama, Mama, Mama.
oh,
And so this went on for like 2 weeks. And I thought, okay, let me go in and like telepathically connect to soul, like eyeball to eyeball. And so I asked, her name's Sophie. I asked Sophie Spirit, what would you like? What do you need? And she said light language. So not just the Reiki, but she wanted light language done on herself, on
oh,
her bed, in her room. So I did that. I'm doing this light language and I'm energetically protecting her space. I do it over her, I do it over her bed, I do it all four corners of her room. And I'm leaving the room and she starts saying, Mama. And she sends me the telepathic message. She wants the door done. So I go to do the door, right? I'm energetically protecting and sealing the door. And I could see it, right? The clairvoyance, I could see it light up, like golden light, like as if it were something out of a movie. You ever see where like they pressed the button and it lit up like magic, right?
yeah,
It looked just like that. So I personally, even though I'm certified in Reiki and can do all these, I still almost 99.9% of the time will go to light language because I do feel like it's more flexible for my practice at least.
yeah, yeah. Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It definitely makes it a lot easier to visualize as well, like how it can be used and everything as well. So there was one more though, the star codes.
Oh yes.
How what is that? Can you please enlighten us on how that works?
What's the difference between light language?
Okay, so we were briefly interrupted. We had all of our internet and Zoom and everything just decided it wanted to take a break. And Nicole, why don't you share what caused that?
I should have warned you. I should have said whenever we talk about light language or star codes or magic or anything like that, without fail, the Zoom and or the internet will cut out. And I just took it for what it is. I did have someone ask me one time, why do you think that happens? And we were talking a little bit before we hopped on the call, before we started recording, this idea of the matrix or these forces outside of ourselves that are wanting to keep us plugged into something that is not for our greatest good and highest potential. And I liken it to, if you take the one pill, you wake up. If you take the other pill, you go back to sleep. But really, what do the forces want to do? They want to keep you asleep. So as we are awakening up to these stronger energies, light language, star codes, magic, and manifestation, what does that matrix system want to do? Shut it off.
Right,
Right. So
right.
you could believe that there are some other forces at play. We can call them good and evil, light and dark, whatever you want. But I just say, it's a game. And as we were laughing, getting back on the call, it is what it is. You just get to have fun, play around with it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and it just, I mean, it's another one of those situations too, where I think if you're trying to think about it logically, you can miss quite a lot. Definitely, for sure, especially in a case like this where we're talking about, I mean, these are real energies that we're discussing. And again, to me, it just makes total sense. I can see how, oh, yes, that could cause some interference. We're going into a lot of we're discussing and circulating a lot of energy right now in the discussion, and I feel it. I totally feel the energy. So I mean, this is a topic, and all of the things that we've discussed up to this point, you can probably read on my face. I would love to just discuss for hours and hours and hours because this is something that really resonates with me so deeply. So. So yeah, so where we were before we're cut off in many different internet. Everything was just decided to take a break and everything. We were getting into star codes as one of the other modalities that you also incorporate into your healing and your coaching. And I was wondering if you could share what that is.
Yes. So star codes, like light language channeled from the cosmos, comes in from above. And if anyone's ever felt like they don't belong, they're not from here, maybe an alien, anything like that, you may in fact be a star seed. So I know that I am from the Vega star and the Lyra constellation. They're thought to have sort of like a cat-like appearance or lion-like appearance, but everyone has different origins in the constellation system. And so these star codes can come in a number of different ways. So how I was trained in this is we connect in with our soul family or a galactic team, and they actually give us a star diamond that floats right here above our head. We talked about the 7 main chakras earlier. There's also an 8th one here called the star chakra. So that's where that kind of hovers about your head. And this can be used to grid your energy or create a protective layer around you, like a kind of a cube-shaped force field around you. It can also be used for healing. So I've actually tuned into my star family, used this star diamond and gridded and used it to do star healing on my dog, who was very sick. She had a skin condition that the doctor said was going to take 6 to 12 months to heal. She healed in 4 to 6 weeks. She came back and he said, "Oh my gosh, is this the same dog?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "I don't believe it. She looks like a completely different dog. I've never seen anything like this in my 20-something years of veterinary science." So magical things can happen. I have used this to heal. I had periodontitis of all things, which is severe gum disease. I don't know how that happened because I have good hygiene, floss and brush. But I realized it was just because I had 2 kids and it affects everything in your body. So I used this to heal the gaps in my teeth and my gum lines. So then I also used it on my son's head, ended up with a flat head, even though we were doing tummy time. And I used that to visualize. So how it works, like on my dog, brought in the star diamond and then use that to create like a healing coat, like a blanket all the way around her. So whenever I was treating her, I was visualizing this diamond going in, clearing out the infection and regrowing her hair. She had lost a lot of her hair. And then she gained back the 5 pounds that she had lost in just 4 weeks. So she healed on my gums. Every time I would brush my teeth, floss my teeth, I would visualize the star, little tiny star, going into my gums and healing the pockets and the gaps and closing all that up and healing all that in my gum line. And then for my son with his little flat head, visualizing the star going around and just rounding out and smoothing out his head. So like when we talked about the light language, going in and healing the field, this little star going in and doing some sort of galactic magic there for healing. So that's one of the ways we can use that star energy. And then we also start to get particular codes and frequencies, like number sequences, letter sequences. We have in our world something called angel numbers, if you've ever seen that, like 111, 222, 333. Earlier, I checked to see what time it was. Over here, it was 333. So those kinds of synchronicities. So star codes will come in, and it could be like you just randomly feel the urge to write down a number. So like if I were writing one down right now, the thing that came through was A127. I don't know what it means, but that has some sort of significance, A127. So then you might keep an eye out for synchronicities. Where do I see A? Where do I see 127? What is this telling me? Again, you can start to tune in and see what's the message that it has for me. Or like light language, we can trust that it's doing whatever it needs to do. In your field, when I look at A127, it has some sort of healing frequency. It's doing something in my field. It's doing something for the listeners.
So when you have a client and you are kind of incorporating this skill with star codes, do you have to first kind of figure out where they're, I mean, how is there like I guess a due diligence of kind of their energy first to kind of figure out, okay, this is their star, or how does that work in terms of application to help someone heal?
It helps to know their star origins. If they don't know, or for whatever reason it's not coming through, then I can have them borrow mine and we use mine and we can go in and grid their field and start playing around with it and having it heal whatever is calling for healing. Like I had a gal, we just did a complete womb healing for her, reactivating that space because she thought that she couldn't have kids. And so we went in and did some healing of some old energies with that. So we'll see what comes through with that. Kind of like it's like I can do something called psychic surgery, which I've done on myself and I've done for other people, where you have a particular condition. In my case, it was endometriosis and ovarian cysts, and they said you're going to have a really hard time having kids, and I said no, watch me. So I went in to put my binaural beats and my guided meditations, and I started visualizing this. I realize now it was a little diamond, but it was like a little scalpel going in and clearing out the scar tissue. just
Yeah.
like visualizing it clearing out the scar tissue and then going into the ovarian cyst and surgically remove that again energetically. I didn't get physical surgery, but
Yeah.
energetically removing that. And then 2 months later, got pregnant with my daughter and then haven't had any problems since.
Wow. Yeah, and I still have trouble, I guess, really trying to find out, and that's one of the reasons that I just love the opportunity that I have with the podcast to talk to people like you, is because um, it's just another reminder that we have so much within us that we can really incorporate into our own well-being and our own healing, and we're not, the feeling of being a victim is so many times uh, is something that we can actually turn on its head if we go inside and really are able to tap into our own strengths and energy and the gifts that we had. Like you said, we're all psychic. We just need to tune into ourselves and really kind of understand how the universe is trying to connect with us. And it's just something that you would think, with what we know, and science is proving this more and more. We talk about, the quantum field and quantum mechanics and all these things. We know by observation we can change reality. It's been proven. We've seen this. They talk about how the path of photons changes simply whether you're looking at it or not, or what you're thinking or whatnot. So we all know this is it exists, and yet it's it still seems to be such a struggle to kind of detach people from the matrix, right? Like you were saying, and to actually go inside and actually rediscover all of the gifts that we actually have within us that we need to just simply understand how to set free. So I mean, I really, really think that what you're doing is so important, and it's just, I mean, these are proven ways to assist, to heal, to help. People may call them different things, and they may think of them differently, but at the end of the day, everything that you've been gracious enough to share with us today, it has to do with really tapping into the energy that is around us all the time and within us all the time. And yeah, some of us may be better at one modality than another, but that doesn't mean anyone is at a disadvantage. It doesn't mean that one person is not capable of healing themselves while another is. It's just we're maybe speaking a different language, and we have to just kind of go inside and figure out what language is the language that resonates with us. What do we understand? How do we start to hear it? And how do we start to really incorporate into our lives what that message is telling us? So I just really applaud your work, and I think it's so important. And I really hope this really helps people who are listening and watching really kind of think about the experiences that they're having in a different way, and don't brush them under the rug. Those feelings that you're having, those thoughts that you're having, those emotions that you're having. Tune in. Don't look for another distraction to try to put them out of your mind. Yeah. The last question I have is really about um, so you incorporate all of these wonderful methods to help people heal. And when I think of a typical life coaching session, I'm a life coach as well, as you know. We have like an action plan, like something we leave people to work on between sessions. And a lot of what you're covering, I'm just kind of wondering, how what would like a generic action plan, let's say you had a client and you were able to discover some of their challenges and help them with some healing and some clarity using one of your modalities. What's an example of an action plan that may come out for that client post session, like between coaching sessions?
Yeah, we call them love assignments, not homework assignments, but I love that. And I just want to say there's no right or wrong way to coach. You're coming at it with divine masculine perspective, which tends to be more left brain logical thinking. Again, no right or wrong. It's just how we're wired. And then I'm coming at it from the divine feminine right brain, more creative way of thinking, which is a little more woo out of it, like left field, right? And so again, it whatever resonates, there's going to be people that want the more logical way of thinking, and there's going to be people that want the more esoteric way of processing. And so, a real common love assignment that I have in my world, there's two: doing the things that bring you joy. So, if I have someone that's coming, say, with anxiety, depression, chronic illness, we really tune back into what did you love to do as a child before somebody told you that that wasn't realistic or practical, and then
Right.
bringing more of that joy piece back into your life, having intentional moments for bliss and pleasure, right? Pleasure is like a word that kind of rubs people the wrong way, like, ooh, that's wrong, that's bad, right? So bliss, joy, bliss, and pleasure. And then also the embodiment piece of it. I talked a little bit about embodiment earlier when we were talking about the energetic signature. But what are some ways that you can move and you can feel and you can be more in your body and open up your energies? Say, when we talk about attracting a soulmate or manifesting more money, if you don't feel like it's safe to be in your body, then
Yeah.
why would it be safe for you to have love or money? So
Right.
those are the two most common inspired ideas and aligned actions that we have is what would feel really, really good for you to do today, tomorrow, this week, what feels really
Right.
yummy and juicy and just fun for you. And then what are some ways that you could be moving and shaking and shifting your body to get back into the energy of it?
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. Even in general, I can think of. I was actually just reading a book or listening to a book by um, his name is Rich Roll. He has a podcast of his own, like very very significant following. But he's also has a best-selling book called Finding Ultra. And in the closing of his book, he actually mentions that one of the assignments that he has for everyone. He says, like, I give you the right to, to really act on the feelings that you've had inside that have been telling you all this time that you're going the wrong way and that you need to make a U-turn or a course correction. And one of the things he actually mentioned was exactly like you said. Think about what it is you used to enjoy doing for the sake of doing it. And he mentioned that how he was like 40, he was an alcoholic until he was like 40 years old or 30 something years old. And then he started doing all these ultra marathons and all kinds of things. And then one of the things you mentioned was, he mentioned a quote from Joseph Campbell. And he said that, many of people climb up the ladder only to find that it's leaning against the wrong wall. You don't want to be that person. So yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying is outstanding advice. And usually we end the podcast episode with a challenge. And I think what you've said is actually fantastic. I think that's a great takeaway for everyone. But I just wanted to give you another opportunity. If there was something else that you recommend that anyone in the audience could start doing today that would help them really start to tune in to their intuition. If you had any advice any advice specifically for people to try starting today.
Yeah, I always go with whatever comes through when someone asks that question, that's what I'm going to say. So the thing that comes through is feel the fear and do it anyway,
Mm,
because it doesn't have to make sense. And I cannot tell you how many times I have gotten a message from spirit that didn't make sense and I did it anyway, and it really worked out beautifully. Like I had a retreat that I was creating an in-person event, and spirit said, post this retreat in this Facebook group. And I said, no one's going to want that. They said, just post it. And I posted it, and every single spot that got booked got filled because of the post that I had shared.
wow.
And the people that came referred other people. People that came signed up to be one-on-one clients. People that came signed up to be in the psychic school. But none of that would have happened if I had been like, that's not going to work.
Yeah, yeah.
So feel it, You could argue with source if you want, but just remember it's always right.
That's
So do it
right.
anyway.
That's wonderful advice. That is wonderful advice. I had a guest last week that was saying she's driving a car and fear's trying to take the wheel, and she says, "Nope, I'm gonna put you in the passenger seat and put a seatbelt on you. You're just along for the ride. We're going. I see you, I hear you, but we're going anyway. So do it anyway." That's wonderful advice. So yeah, and definitely. So where is the best place for people to find you, all that you're doing, and to find your coaching? How do people find you? What's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, I'm all over the internet, social media. If you want to get in touch with my courses, programs, or coaching, you can find me at oracleacademy.com. I will spell that because it's a play on words. I took the psychic oracle and added aura, so it's
Loved it.
Auracle
Yeah.
academy.com. I also have a free quiz on there where you can discover your intuitive type, how you can best connect with spirit, free little 2-minute quiz that is at oracleacademy.com/quiz. And then I also have a free Facebook group for like-minded kindred spirits such as ourselves to gather in a completely judgment-free zone. And that is facebook.com/groups/Oracle Academy. And then I'm also on instagram.com/Nicole, Nicole, little dot in the middle, Starbucks with my first and last name, Nicole.Starbuck.
Got it. And I'll be sure to put all of this in the podcast, in the summary as well for this podcast. So that is fantastic. Well, Nicole, thank you so much for taking the time today to connect with everyone here and for sharing your gifts and your insight. This has been an absolutely educational and exciting and fun, and even with all of the hiccups with the video, and when we started talking about light energy, at the end of the day, it definitely all worked out really well, and I'm just so happy we had the opportunity to connect and do this podcast today. So thank you so much for being a guest.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Manifest Your Greatness podcast. If you liked what we've explored on this episode, then you'll love the Manifest Your Greatness coaching program. The Manifest Your Greatness coaching program is uniquely tailored to help support you on your journey to become the absolute best version of yourself. So if you are committed to taking the steps required to significantly and permanently level up in any area of your life, visit manifestyourgreatness.com/contact. Again, that's manifestyourgreatness.com/contact and schedule your free consultation call today. Talk soon.